Good morning, everyone. This is the Vermont House Committee on Commerce and Economic Development. It is Thursday, May 22nd, 2025 at 9:36 in the morning. But we are here to take some testimony on H512. I'm trying to get ahead of the curve a little bit. We contemplate taking this up when we come back in January. So we have two people with us this morning from the Paramount Theater in Rutland and Burlington. So I think, you're up first with Eric.
Yep, he's on screen.
And
Yes,
yes, you can join us right up here if you like.
okay.
And if you both want to testify at the same time?
We pretty much have the same message. Eric can go first, and if I have anything to add to it,
Okay.
do that.
Yeah, and maybe just for the record, state your name and then your affiliation.
Okay. My name is Janelle Soren, and I'm the box office and marketing manager at the Paramount Theater.
And Eric, good morning.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm Eric Millette. I'm the executive director of the Paramount in Rutland.
Crank the volume a little bit. Thank you. Oh,
Is my
thank you.
audio clear? I can never tell on the other end.
Yes, yeah,
Okay, great.
we just need our volume put up, that's all.
Okay.
Thank you for joining us this morning. A number of years ago, we did some work in this area. And I think when I saw that Representative Harrison had put this bill in, that I think it's time for us to take another look at it and see what we can do to improve what we already have on books. Thank you both for joining us. Go ahead with your testimony.
So what I'd like to do first is just give just a brief 45 to 60-second synopsis of how this scalping seems to work, because to me that drives the ship on what it is needs to be done to mitigate some of the frustration that venues are experiencing right now. So if I can just start with that sort of elementary exercise, I'll get to testifying to how it's impacting our line of work here in our region. So in some ways, we're going to use the term resellers quite frequently, which is really a polite term, in my opinion, for scalpers. That's what we're talking about today. We're talking about scalpers, people that are knowingly looking to make extreme profit margins by purchasing tickets to venues and selling them, again, at a high profit margin. In some ways, these scalpers have developed almost the most perfect business model. And what I mean by that is they don't invest in these inventories before they are sold. So what happens is when the Paramount Theater announces an event and an event goes on sale, of course, fans of whatever the event is are excited. They log on to the internet, they Google, they search Paramount Theater, insert name of show here. And for anybody on this call today that's familiar with Google AdWords, what this is a resulting list of all of the returned search options. The Paramount or the Flynn or the Barry Opera House or Chandler or insert venue here, we don't have the resources available to us for our shows to appear high on that list of Google AdWords. So if somebody does not directly visit the website of the venue that they are looking to attend and they simply search it, 99 times out of 100, at the top of that search bar of those search returns are going to be ads for scalpers. Boxofficeticketsales.com, ticketsnow.com, buyyourseats.com, et cetera, they pay extreme prices, in my opinion, to Google or other search engines to have that first place appearance. Said patron clicks on one of those ads, believing it to be the venue's preferred ticketing site. It is not, it is a scalper. They purchase a ticket, and I'm air quoting that because they're actually not purchasing anything. They're turning over their information, they're paying for something, but that physical ticket doesn't exist yet. The purchase is made, the scalper then goes to the venue website, purchases the ticket for face value, let's call it $50. They had previously sold that to the buyer that unknowingly clicked on an ad, they're going to sell that to the buyer for 3 to 4 times higher than it can be purchased for directly from the venue. Now let's talk about all the problems that comes with. That ticket can be sold more than once. If these folks are not above, excuse me, these people, yes, if they are willing to sell a $50 ticket for $400, their mores will allow them to sell that ticket 5 times. They simply don't care. They're looking at extreme profit margins and they want to widen them as far as they can. Because there are no laws in the books in the state of Vermont prohibiting extreme markup, they are completely within the confines of what is legal to do this malicious activity, which is without a doubt causing extreme public harm. And that's what I really want to talk about. That was the logistics of how this happens. What I want to talk about today is the harm that this is causing Vermonters, the harm this is causing the venues that in so many ways are the heartbeat of the communities that we serve. We hear repeatedly at the box office, and Janelle will testify to this, phone calls, emails, people saying, gosh, I can't believe that tickets to XYZ artist are $400. What the heck are y'all thinking? That's not who we are. We're a mission-driven organization. Our goal is to make our building as accessible as possible to everybody in our community. When scalpers are making that difficult for us, our mission ostensibly becomes slightly more expensive because now we need to find ways to counter exactly what's going on. So let's talk about the ways that this affects the patron. The patron overpays. That's the most obvious answer. A $50 ticket, they spend $250 on. That's the most obvious harm that's done to the public. But that's very anecdotal and very specific. In my opinion, the greater harm that is done to the public is the damage that it does to these heartbeats of our communities, to these venues that are doing their darndest to stay above water by keeping ticket prices as reasonable as possible. So imagine, if you will, for a minute, you log on and there's an artist, a show, a production, something that you're interested in attending, and you're going to go to Rutland to see it. You go on the internet, you search the artist, you click the link, you see that those tickets are very expensive, $200, $300, $400. You're not going, not everybody is going to fall for it. Not everybody is going to buy the ticket. I would argue, and this is intangible evidence, I can't prove this. My guess is for every one person that falls for it, there's 50 that say, geez, what's the Paramount thinking? That place isn't for me. I thought they were here for the community. Why are tickets $400 a piece? Reputation harm being done is real. They close their internet browser. They have a sour taste in their mouth about the venue, perhaps never to return again. Again, I can't quantify what that is. I don't see the ditched shopping carts on the scalpers' websites, of course, but I have a pretty darn good feeling that more often than not, those carts are abandoned after those high prices are seen and said patron disappears. That causes real harm to organizations like mine. They don't think of the venue as a venue that is theirs anymore. And as a 22-year veteran of having worked here in the trenches in Rutland trying to build the Paramount into what it is today, I can tell you that's a really hard thing to try and recapture, to get the community's attention back. If this allows to continue unfettered, the long-term damage to venues like the Paramount will be impactful in ways that I don't even want to imagine. I'm going to conclude with just one piece that I hope doesn't step on the toes of lawmakers. It's simply one venue manager's opinion. If a law is established that creates avenues for scalpers to continue this malfeasance, allows scalpers to continue to reach into the pockets of Vermonters, if that is allowed to continue because they pay a registration fee to the state, I can assure you, which is a model that some states are looking at, they're looking at registering ticket resellers. That's sort of second cousin, in my opinion, to creating a get out of jail free card. The state of Vermont developed decades ago speed limits on our highways. We don't sell a pass that allows somebody to flash at the officer that pulled them over for going 85 miles an hour in a school zone and say, hey, look, I paid the registration fee, so I get to break the law. I would implore this committee and any other lawmaker that looks at moving this, advancing this forward, to forego any sort of avenue that creates permission for resellers to exist. What we need is we need a law that caps the margin on top of the face value of the ticket. Anything less than that is toothless. So I would conclude by saying, whatever law is created, putting a cap on what the margin can be, 0 to 10% would be my goal. That will cause this marketplace to die a natural death. If they no longer have the ability to make the markups that they do now, there will be no need for them to continue the practice. And you can look at several different states around the country that have similar laws in place. And if you were to Google venues in those marketplaces, you're not going to get buried by those AdWords that I described at the beginning of my testimony. You're going to see the venue's website pop up first, and you're going to buy the ticket directly from the venue at the most direct route and the least expensive option.
Thank you. I'm just wondering, to me, it makes sense to do both. That you require registration and there's a cap, and that gives wherever that sits, whatever department it sits, gives them the ability to know who's in the state and the ability to monitor what they're doing. So I think probably that double piece in there would be more effective for consumer protection.
I don't disagree. You're right.
Other questions, Emily?
Hi, thank you so much. This has been very helpful. Do you have any concern about peer-to-peer sales at all through like sites like Access Tickets and StubHub?
I don't consider those to be peer-to-peer, in my opinion, because we are the only authorized seller of tickets to events at our venue. Anything that doesn't appear on our website is not an authorized purchase. You know, for those of us that have been in this business long enough, we've seen things like Ace Tickets and StubHub really start to flourish. And what's crazy to me is that's scalping. That's causing the same harm, but it's doing it on this oddly out in the open way that makes it feel less offensive. In my opinion, it's still just as offensive.
Just one last question. So in the event that somebody wants to go to a show and they can't make it, but they'd like to transfer a ticket to a friend or somebody, or just get face value for it, are you opposed to that?
Not at all.
Okay.
Not at all.
Yeah, I think some of the things I'm kind of struggling with is that they are exploiting that particular loophole. I mean, I've been going to shows since I was 13, like the ability to just sort of transfer tickets. And I know that this has been a long-standing concern because these companies can come in and exploit this like very basic commerce point between two individuals. And I'm curious how to get them to stop that and still preserve the ability for consumers to be able to do that.
So I think if I can just respond to that a little bit to create some peace for you, maybe, is most of the major venues, and by major venues I mean those of us that sell greater than $100,000 in gross tickets a year. I believe that most of us in the state, if not all of us, contract with a ticketing company, a suite of software that provides for that transfer that we're talking about, allowing for that business to stay within the confines of the venue without having to sublet, if you will, that service to an outside party. But you're right, it is a loophole that can be exploited.
Okay. And
If the
just
cap on the margin is in place, I think that loophole starts to tighten.
okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Janelle and Eric, for taking time. I'm learning a lot from this. And so I was wondering if I'm understanding this in real time. Sean Colvin and Rodney Kroll together on stage on June 20th. I think going through your site, there's a seat in the balcony and it's about $55, $56, something like that. And that's through ovationtix.com. That's your partner. Okay, so I'm at another entity and I'm seeing balcony left, row J for $94. So my question to you is, are you hearing from people? I know we talked about people getting the sense, oh, what are they thinking? These are prices are too high. Are people consuming less art? Are they going fewer times because, well, I saw that show I wanted to see, and that's so I got to go to one when in fact the outlay was enough for them to have gone to 3 or 4. And with your box office work, I'm just curious if that's one of the impacts that's happening is that there's less exposure to the heartbeat, you might say.
That's absolutely an impact of it. Is that people are saying, well, they've told us in the box office, well, I'm just going to stop going to shows because they feel like they just got jilted out of hundreds of dollars. They did. Or they'll say, well, I was going to go to something else and I can't go to it now. Oh, fire alarm.
No.
Oh, no, it stopped.
Okay, we don't do anything to end this committee meeting. What the heck?
Blame this one on Ticketmaster. An example of that is a grandmother. So we have Rutland Youth Theater shows. Senior tickets are $10 each. Our cap for a fee, for a convenience fee online is, for all fees online is around $9.50 for a ticket. Grandmother calls and says, I was going to bring my whole family, but I couldn't do it for your prices. Woman paid $195 for a $10 ticket and couldn't bring her family to see her grandchildren. That's the type of impact that it's having on the public.
And I'm sorry to interrupt, if I can just springboard from what Janelle just shared with us, it's great that we have that one example. I have every reason to believe that for every example that we learn about in a literal sense, like that conversation Janelle had with that woman in the box office, there are countless others that just closed their computer and said to the Paramount. That's happening to every venue in this state.
Or they go to the show and we never see them. They're not even our customer. And so we don't know who bought the ticket.
So,
yeah, if I can speak to this too, I'm Dave Bosch. I'm from Rutland too, and I love you guys. You guys are a gem in our area. I really appreciate the quality of the stuff you bring, both to your own outlet there at the Paramount, but your work with the State Fair. And yeah, I didn't go to Gordon Lightfoot the last time he was at the Paramount, which would have been my 8th time to see him over the course of his career, because I couldn't afford what I was seeing as the ticket price. Now I'm a committed fan. We do have tickets for the School of Dance recital coming up, in which I've got 2 granddaughters performing, but my daughter took time out of her workday to go to the box office and make sure even something like that, she was getting the best possible deal. So I really feel your pain and I understand it, and I've been touched by it already. So thank you.
Questions? Abby?
So I mean, I've certainly had the experience too of trying to purchase tickets and spending a lot of effort trying to figure out what is the official site. It is very hard to tell.
Especially if you're visiting.
Right, especially if you're visiting. And I'm curious how often you see tickets being sold more than once. I talked to another legislator who's an usher at the Flynn, and he said they see folks coming and there will be more than one guest who has the same students. I'm curious if that is something that is a frequent thing that you see.
Can I answer that one, Eric?
yeah, please do.
Okay.
Yeah, you.
So I don't know. There have been instances where the tickets are sold more than once. The times that we notice this the most, of course, are if the performance is sold out because we don't have anywhere to seat the people as they arrive. It doesn't happen as often as you would think. But what happens more often for us is that they'll sell the tickets more than once and then never deliver the tickets to the next person. And so when they come, so a patron has paid $400 for the tickets, comes to the box office, thinks that they bought the tickets through us, wants to get their tickets printed. Never, they saw a confirmation, but never saw the tickets. We don't know the order number for those tickets, the name they were purchased under, anything. And out of conviviality, and we discuss and tell them what has happened. We educate them about the situation, urge them to purchase from ParamountVT.org, and we comp them into the show if we have a seat. If we don't have a seat, they don't get to go to the performance, because after all of that, the worst thing to us would be to turn somebody away from the experience, especially when we know that they already paid for this even. So that's another way that affects us financially.
Can I make a suggestion that when you're talking with people that's happened to, is to provide them the phone number or the email address to the Consumer Assistance Program?
They are provided with that information as well, absolutely.
We'll have, I mean, as this goes forward, we'll have a conversation with the Attorney General's office too.
Mhm.
But I think, we can get some data from them on how many people are calling in those instances that have been defrauded. And see if there's anything that the Attorney General's office has been able to do to get their money refunded to them, at least, but. Sure.
Thanks very much for your testimony. It kind of rings true for me, not to the same extent that I'm hearing in terms of the markup stuff, but I had some experiences where trying to book a room, in a local hotel or whatever, and they probably don't have, and the same phenomena came up. I was able to figure it out, but they were going to mark it up a pretty significant amount, not to the same extent that yours. But it just seems, I mean, you got the ticketing stuff. It seems to me that it might be a problem in other businesses in the state too.
I'm curious also about out of state sales, because there are definitely a lot of like Vermonters that will purchase tickets for events that are happening out of state, and this thing is still happening because it's like an industry-wide concern.
Any other questions?
For a venue that's out of state but purchasing in Vermont. Is that-
Yeah, purchasing from Vermont, but going to a venue out of state. Yeah.
I'm not sure how that
What do you mean?
visited.
Well, I mean, that's something that the Attorney General's office can also instruct us on what consumer protections that we have that protect Vermonters when they're purchasing online, something that's outside the state as well. But
Yeah.
I think I think they have the ability to protect Vermonters in those cases too, but we'll hear from them.
I'd like to just circle back quickly, if it's appropriate for me to do so, on the conversation regarding the Attorney General's office. And Janelle's done some really great work, along with Kevin at the Flynn and some other of our partners around the state. And the challenge that I think that we face the most is because there is not legislation on the books, it's hard for us to look in the eyes of a patron and say, I'm really sorry this happened to you, but unfortunately you're not protected. The purchase they made was as valid a purchase as any, assuming that the reseller didn't purchase the ticket more than once and try and resell it. Because the law right now is toothless, notifying the Attorney General's office is a really great way, I think, of us to help catalog how repetitious this activity is. But my understanding of it, and what the people much smarter than I have explained to me, is they are working within the confines of the law. So I would have a hard time, and I'm not trying to support the scalpers, But because they have discovered Vermont doesn't have anything that prohibits this kind of behavior, it's buyer beware. If you got suckered enough into buying a $400 ticket to a show, or using the example that the gentleman gave, the $94 ticket to Rodney Crowley, you paid twice as much.
That's before fees.
Correct.
Yeah.
And you did that, though you didn't know you were overspending, the law doesn't prohibit what I consider to be the very grotesque act that the scalper went through, doesn't consider that to be wrong. So I think the Attorney General's office has done really good work cataloging the number of times this has happened by those that have been willing to actually call and file a complaint. But I don't know what ability they have currently to protect Vermonters, because the purchase was made legally.
I would agree with you, but the people that didn't receive a ticket,
Correct.
that then there's an issue there because they paid for something and didn't receive the product that they paid for. So I imagine the Attorney General's office could go after them for that as well, but if they also use their credit card, they can go back to their credit card company and dispute that as well. So there are some avenues when people don't receive the product that they paid for. But I hear you when, you know, when ticket prices are going up 100, 200, 300%, is a little ridiculous. Tony?
I was just curious if you, just in your musings and reading about this stuff, is there a particular state where you say, hey, I really like what they're doing, something we could use sort of as a baseline bill?
Yeah, so Janelle and I have reviewed the New York State law on it. Of course, probably the state that sells the most number of tickets to live events out of any, and no one write that down, I'm making that up, but it seems logical.
It does.
It's
They
all
have very, very strong laws on the books, and that's where our idea of this cap of the margin came into effect. That is the New York State way of approaching the secondary market. They're not saying don't do it. They're just making it so, they're making the profitability of it so limited. It's just, you're fishing in a hole that has no fish. That's the most Vermont thing ever said on one of these testimonies, I bet.
Eric, are you aware of any enforcement success or difficulties they're having in New York enforcing that cap?
I'm not. But it seems, I can only express that it seems to work anecdotally, because if you do go through an exercise similar to the one that you would go through the Paramount or any Vermont venue online, you won't see the same prevalence of the secondary market as you do here.
I will say in my personal experience, having bought tickets for Webster Hall, this is still happening.
Yeah.
I definitely overpaid for those.
Oh, great. Thank you both. We
Thank you.
appreciate your time. We'll be, I don't know that we're gonna have much more time to take any more testimony. I mean, Kevin for sure, but in days leading up to the end of the session, we may take some more testimony, maybe from the Attorney General's office. But definitely we'll be taking this up in January and trying to put something through that can protect Vermonters and protect the Vermont businesses as well. Kevin, if you'd like to join us. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. My name is Kevin Sweeney. I'm the Director of Sales and Marketing at the Flynn in Burlington. So I think Eric spoke exceptionally well to the process, but I want to just amplify that if I may. There are dozens of resale sites. They pop up, new ones pop up all the time. There are the big ones that are known like StubHub, which is also part of Ticketmaster, part of Live Nation, which is, I think, crosses monopoly lines. But what the process is, nobody comes to the Flynn or goes online at the Flynn and buys tickets at StubHub or a ticket resale. These are individuals, opportunists that are looking for, as Eric pointed out, ways to make hundreds of dollars just by pushing a couple of keys on the keyboard. They are located not just in Vermont, but throughout the entire country. Just last week, we have announced 4 performances of Jim Gaffigan coming this September. We estimate 40% of the tickets, because they're all sold out or close to sold out, 40% were bought for resale. We are going through this. We have a process. When we start to see something that looks suspicious in purchases, we actually notify, we reach out and say, we suspect you have purchased these tickets for resale. And we are going to give you 2 weeks to come back and say, no, that's not the case. And if they don't come back, we invalidate the tickets, we credit them back, less our fees now, which is something we've started. We used to give them back their fees as well. We stopped doing that. And that's a process that still doesn't stop it entirely. They don't notify, they keep the money. These individuals then just hide themselves, and then it goes back to the website where these tickets were sold through, not the fraudulent purchaser. We have seen them coming in for overseas. We've tried to take action to block certain geographic places from buying. They use VPNs, and they're able to make it appear like they're buying from Vermont. When they place them on the resale sites, I'll give you a great example. It's very timely. Paula Poundstone, we just went on pre-sale yesterday for her at 10 a.m. It was a pre-sale for us is to our members. These are people who sign up, help support us, our philanthropic work. They also go to Paula Poundstone fan clubs. So these ticket buyers are the individuals who are buying tickets and reselling, sign up for all the fan clubs. So they get all the passwords. Those tickets went on pre-sale at 10 a.m. At 10:18, I got a Google alert. And in the Google alert was Vivid Seats announcing Paula Poundstone tickets. You click on the link, you go to the page, and it goes, only 50 tickets remain. As of this morning, we still have 1,000 seats remain. So this is another aspect on these sites that they create a perception of demand. And looking through some of the legislation, there's note that you're a resale site. That has no teeth because most of them will put in a font size of 8 at the top of a website, right? And a picture of the Flynn in it as well. So it appears, I have actually had situations online on social media where people have posted going, you're advertising false prices, even though there's a link in that post to see our site. And they'll come back, I saw your site, it was $300 a ticket, not $80 a ticket. That's a lot of work keeping educating these people one at a time. I've been at the Flynn for 3 years. Prior to that, I spent 14 years as the director of marketing theaters in New York. So I can speak a little back to their law. The other aspect that happens, of course, and Eric touched upon this, is when somebody arrives at the door. Those who will buy and sell multiple tickets. See, these resale sites, they don't manage that. They don't oversee the fact that someone might be selling the same pair of tickets multiple times. Last year when we did Oklahoma, many may remember we did, not Oklahoma, beg your pardon, Sound of Music at Trapp Lodge. There were people buying up those tickets, putting them on resale sites as the Sound of Music, the full musical at the Flynn. I reached out to these resale sites going, that is false information. Here's the right information. I even try to help them, even though I hate their business model, because it did happen. People showed up at the Flynn with their resale tickets for a show that was happening up in Stowe. People also showed up, mentioned about the multiple purchases. We had a daughter buy tickets for her father to his favorite show out of Portsmouth. They're in Portsmouth. They drove all the way up as his gift, his daughter's gift. They got in the door. Their tickets had already been checked in. Now, we were able to find them tickets. And of course, we didn't charge them for it. It was unfair. But when we discover people who come in the door who don't have tickets or have invalid tickets because we found the reseller, we credited them back, we have them notify the State Attorney General's Office, Consumer Protection. We give them a full list of how to deal with their credit card company. We have since now have a person who works at least 20 hours a week doing nothing but dealing with these situations. That's a huge impact on a not-for-profit like us, especially, and Eric touched upon, I think, exceptionally well. Our mission is very similar. We exist to provide arts and remove barriers based upon pricing and everything else and geographics to the entire state. You know, the Flint has been doing playing fields all over the state. We're looking to keep expanding upon that. Tying up resources has a very negative impact on us. And I haven't even touched upon those who will resell, who will purchase tickets with fraudulent, with stolen credit card numbers, sell them through a resale site, and then suddenly they're very intuitive. They know how to do this. They usually purchase those within 2 weeks prior. They sell them on a resale site. And then suddenly a week later, we're getting from the credit card company, that was a stolen credit card. You need to credit that back. And we have no recourse in that. So that's another expense that last year we estimated between $18,000 to $30,000 in chargeback fees, plus an additional charge of probably $40,000 to $50,000 in labor hours just to deal with this issue. Go back in my head here. About 30,000, about 30. I'm just looking at just my one person. Yeah, it will be about 30,000 in labor. And up to, I have the actual specifics. Last year was about 18,000 that we could prove was fraudulent credit cards, chargebacks. The legislation.
I don't want to interrupt. I just want to support what you just said, and that the theater at the Paramount this year is on range for $20,000 in chargeback totals. These are real numbers. Sorry to interrupt.
No, I appreciate that support, because that, especially for this committee, the impact on the business model for us is substantial. The perception that Eric had mentioned is correct. They price us out. I have a situation when I was in the lobby last year where someone had purchased 3 tickets on behalf of 2 of her friends and herself to come see Come From Away, the Broadway musical, when it was coming through. She was talking to an usher and she was very like, I don't understand. She ended up paying, and her friends ended up paying $180 for a ticket that was priced out the door, full fees at $100. She asked me to talk to her friends and explain how she was duped. This is what is happening. You just don't know. Eric hit upon it so well. If you Google Flynn Center tickets, you can just go up right now. If you go to Bing, Flynn Center tickets, these people dominate the paid AdWords search. And if we're talking like in some of this about advertising, that's advertising. It should say right at the top, resale site. It doesn't. It says tickets for the Flynn, tickets, go see Paula Poundstone. It's very deceptive. I'm old enough to remember my brother getting arrested out in front of Fenway Park trying to hawk a couple of tickets. Back in the days when it was illegal. To New York's point, one of the things, and I think my understanding from one of the producers on Broadway's, they kind of took the teeth out of their bill. That the former governor removed it before he left office. And that's when Broadway started seeing huge explosions in resale. To the point, and they can afford to do this, the producers look on site and say, well, Merrily We Roll Along is getting $900 for front row seats. We're only charging $300. They marked them up to $900. That's not what we want to do to our consumers. We're already fighting that. We want to make it as low cost as possible. And these people are really hurting our ability to do that. In other cases, there are people that will buy the tickets and have them in hand when they put them on the resale site. But to Eric's point, there are a number of sites that say right on it, at the very bottom, we do not yet have these tickets. We will procure those on your behalf. The last piece I would just like to put in is the steps. In addition to hiring this Jill to help us with fraud, we updated our terms and conditions. And so our terms and conditions read that this is at checkout before you buy anything, and all the pricing is very clear. I acknowledge that I have checked the event date, time, price. I have read and agreed to the following policies. I attest I am the ticket purchaser and will not submit fraudulent personal information with my ticket purchase. I do not intend to resell my purchase tickets on a secondary market. And then there are no refunds or exchanges on ticket sales, including service fees. They check this box. Our guesstimate is really hard to pinpoint, but more than 80% of the people who are buying tickets to resale are using false addresses. One last example that I'll give is kind of humorous for me because it changed one of our policies. We found somebody who came to a show, purchased tickets that were invalid. She also said, "Oh, I bought these tickets from the same place." So we looked at those. We notified the person who had purchased those seats, ended up notifying Wolf Maserati. I'm not kidding. That was his name, the name. We notified him that we were crediting back those seats because he had put those on for resale in violation of our policy. He came back, said, "Absolutely not. I purchased those for myself." He was going on and on, back and forth. Usually you do it, it's done. This guy was insisting. So I took the phone he had. I want to talk to him. Well, it was a fake phone number. So he had violated the policy there, but still playing his game. We went back and finally he goes, "No, I purchased those tickets for my family. We really want to see it." I said, "Wolf, I feel bad that we caused this pain for you." So I literally can provide these emails. And I said, "So what we've done, even though we credited you back for these tickets, we are going to give you 3 tickets free, much better seats." And he comes back, "Great, send me the tickets." And I said, "Oh no, they will be available a half an hour before the show for you to show up with an identification." He never showed up. And he's probably still buying through us, but he just keeps changing accounts.
Fox Maserati.
No, Wolf Maserati. And he didn't spell Maserati wrong.
His new name is.
Oh, it's Fox. Some of the names that come in are just, yeah. Although we're not getting like the John Smiths or the Jane Does type of thing you would expect. So, but it is having a lot of time, a big problem with the perception. It's impossible for me to calculate the number of people who will go to and see a price on a resale site and stop there and not purchase. We just don't know. But any help that we can be provided, both I think on the consumer side and also on the business side, is really appreciated.
I'm curious, I think sort of in the larger landscape, this has really affected the entertainment industry to the point where there are artists that are no longer touring. So has this affected your ability to book acts?
I don't believe so.
No.
We haven't seen that really impact. I'm trying to think if we've really seen any change in that. No, I think we are able. Some I think have stopped touring because of the pricing.
Yeah.
And I know some acts have gone through can only purchase tickets through their place to try to control it. And I don't mean to speak ill of any of the producers and performers, but most of the time when the report comes out, they get daily sales reports. And we see a reseller, they see the tickets drop by 20 tickets. They come back and why did that happen? Some of them are less than happy with our policy because ultimately it's not their venue that this is creating the issues.
So why are people going to, because I just type in Flynn tickets and you're right on top of the list. And
What's the website?
www.flynnbt.org.
It's making sure because there's
I
some,
sold my soul to Google, so Google gives me what I want. I should probably check a different browser. Maybe it would.
If you do-
Do it incognito.
Okay, let me try that
Okay.
because that may actually make a difference. And I
Specific show.
Yeah.
okay.
Which show do you?
I'm I'll just put Paula Poundstone because that's going to be a hard, Jim Gaffigan, Jim Gaffigan. And the other thing, you see them on social media. They're advertising these, and one of the, I don't know if it's a nuisance to them or not, but I go in every time I see a StubHub or Ticket Sales Center or any of those on sale advertising any show anywhere, I react with an angry emoji. And it's funny because that angry emoji's gone and they repost it. So I encourage everyone to do that on resale sites.
So I did incognito and it still came up with flynn.org. The second one is
Flynn.org is in our website.
or Flynn, sorry, flynnvt.org. I bet. And the second one was cart.flynnvt.org.
Right. That's part of our site.
And then burlingtontheater.com comes up after that.
Which is not us. I'm going just to go to my Google.
And the reason why I'm sorry.
I was just, did you have a question?
I do. So I'm just trying to figure out who's going to, because for me, I
just did the same thing. I just typed tickets for the Flynn, Burlington, Vermont. Go Tickets comes up first. Box office ticket sales comes up next. Ticket sales on sale, which identifies itself as the Flynn Center Burlington. And then we come up last after those others. That's really standard. I cannot explain. I'm not an expert on Google. I don't understand why.
I did
because
it.
Google knows who I am. I've sold all my data.
Oh. So they know you might be somebody watching this.
That's really kind of creepy that it's.
Yeah, I got a very professional looking one. Ticket Stash Center is the first.
Yeah. And that's it. They just we do have a pay-per-click model for several of our shows. And depending upon the budget, because most of the budgets are set by the acts, we cannot outspend them. We keep getting outbid. We might do $1 bid for a click. They'll do $1.50 because they have so much profit to work with.
Question is, so if enacted, does legislation then does that impact how search engines address things? Like how might that affect this situation that we're experiencing as you enter keywords and you get sponsored things up at the top? In New York, has that, like with that legislation, has that impacted the way, it doesn't impact what people type in, does it impact what then arises?
I would think, again, I think with the legislation, what could be beneficial, and one of the things, if you're advertising, it has to be very clearly noted that you're a resale site, period. And if that was put in, like, instead of like the one I just looked at, for instance, that noted, you clicked on it, and it's Flynn Center was the title that came up, not ticket reseller site. And I think it's deceptive practices. They are intentionally sliding this in through any type of legislation that might exist to get through. But that's if they identify, these people will be a little, hopefully more aware. So the other aspect, we actually have invested in, tickets for the Flynn, don't Google, go to flynnvt.org. It's in every single email we send out. It's on our homepage. We put it out on social and promote it frequently. People still just do what they do, or they'll use Siri and get you tickets. And
I keep interrupting. I just wanted to add something to the question, if I may. I think you would logically see a reduction in those ad spaces that appear before the venue for the reason Kevin just mentioned. Right now, they can afford to pay exorbitant over the top per click fees because their margins are so wide. If that margin is to shrink to 10% or less, they're sort of on the same playing ground that we are. If they're not making incredible sums of money on top of the face value, they wouldn't have the resource or frankly the reason to want to spend crazy click through prices because they couldn't earn the monies back. Right?
I guess one question I have is that you you all are the authorized seller of those tickets.
Correct.
How, then, would it be against the law for them to resell those tickets?
Against the law? No, but currently, no. But it is currently a violation of our policy. So we have not had anyone challenge us legally on that yet, but I'm not saying that couldn't happen.
I mean, not challenge you, but challenge the people that are purchasing them or the businesses that are then reselling them.
Right.
If you're the only authorized seller of those tickets. So
Right. Well, and that is true. So for about 90% of the cases, sometimes the tickets will also be available on something like paulapoundstone.com, but that will link right to our page.
okay.
So,
I think I figured it out. It was because I was using Google, and Google knows my preferences. Because when I went into Bing and DuckDuckGo, StubHub, but yeah, that's really concerned. Do you know, like, the generation of people that are being affected by this? I don't want to say that, but I mean,
yes, and it's more likely we do and we don't. We have seen it across all generations. I think the most vulnerable population are the people that are less web savvy, which would be my generation.
Yeah.
And typically when I'm seeing it in the lobby, those are the people that I'm talking with people around my age in the 50s and 60s. And they're certainly the ones that have the least disposable income. I don't know if it's COVID related or not, but one of the studies I did recently in pulling data, we've seen a 10% reduction in boomer attendance since we reopened in 2021.
So I think we probably add AARP to the.
Yes.
This is a good idea. Bringing in, see what they're seeing. Emily?
So you answered partly my question, but I was curious how much consumer education and nudging consumers can habit forming and sort of ticket culture. Because I mean, back in the day, we had a culture of just going to the box office, as inconvenient as it was. It also made kind of a scene in a party. So I'm curious about, like, how much how much do we need to be like nudging culture?
Constantly. I think if we're talking about public service PSA announcements, I think that would be a wonderful campaign. We actually mentioned that when we met with one of the representatives from the AG's office. We also, through the Attorney General's office, they provided us some graphics. We've always been sort of doing our own piece, but since it came from the Attorney General's office, it's about creating an awareness campaign that we display on our digital screens in the lobby. Again, so Janelle and Eric and Nat, and a number of people, we sort of all found each other to start addressing this issue. But I know there are many more, like the gentleman, Alec from Higher Ground says, "Oh, this doesn't happen to us." He actually said it in a 7 Days article. And I'm like, you need to Google your tickets because they're up there on all the resale sites too. So it is definitely a consumer issue, and it has to be addressed from that way, I think, as well. Did I answer your question? I'm sorry.
Yeah, you didn't think that.
Eric, did you have
The challenge with the consumer education piece is we've kind of joked in our office, putting that sort of educational component on our website is a bit like putting your blinker on after you've already taken the exit. If the person is savvy enough, and I'm not being argumentative, these are things we bounced around too.
Yeah.
If you make that effort, if they're already on your website to see the darn graphic that's provided by us or by the AG's office, they're on our website, they kind of know what to do. And I think that's part of our challenge is you're trying to educate somebody, a group of people, on something that is less defined to them than maybe it is to somebody who's more web savvy.
And even to that note, I will tell you, I almost ended up, for a gunkwit, ended up buying through a resale site, and it really stopped me in my tracks. two people I work with have gone through similar things and buying through resale sites. They're very good at making it appear you're on the right site. And I think, I don't know, I mean, do we have the ability as the venue to say you cannot use our photograph in your pieces? I don't know,
Not yet.
not yet. Thank you.
And I don't know if that falls into a deceptive act of commerce either, so, which is in the Consumer Protection Act. So, I mean, those are questions that we'll have to discuss with the Attorney General's office. We're gonna wrap up, so.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I was just curious whether or not we can license resellers and
Well, we can
require.
I mean, that's some of the things that I think we're chatting about is registration along with capping, you know, the
50.
amount that they can, mark the tickets up, so.
There's also Ticketmaster, I remember an era where they had non-refundable tickets. And they do have for some of their events, non-transferable tickets. So it seems within the bounds of possibility.
And if I could just add to this Ticketmaster, one of the things I've noted, I came from my last venue in Buffalo where I worked was a Ticketmaster venue. Tickets would go on sale, and we did a Dave Chappelle show, for instance. Tickets were sold out within 45 minutes. When you go to the map, you saw all these resales, and they were all from StubHub, which Ticketmaster is part of. So they're double dipping. To me, that's something that needs to be addressed on the federal level. And Live Nation, when they book, we are not a Ticketmaster. We use our own branded software called Tessator. It does show up as Flynn. They're always like, well, we want to sell tickets through Ticketmaster, and we just refuse. It has to only be through our sites. And that may have lost us a couple of shows.
Okay. Thank you, Eric.
Excuse me, Emily, you had mentioned a question earlier. Is this affecting the ability to book acts? And that sort of jogged a memory of mine. And Kevin, I'm so sorry. I'm not trying to in any way hijack your time at the table here. It brought something to my mind, and it springboards from something Kevin had shared in these chargebacks. You know, without getting into the nitty-gritty of the details of how we settle a show with an artist, suffice to say that probably more often than not, the model includes a revenue share, a term called overages. If they hit a certain number, they start sharing in the revenue, a percentage to them, the artist, and a percentage to us, the venue. As Kevin said, 2 weeks later, we get the chargeback notification. That's damning for us for two reasons. We've already paid the artist. I don't have the opportunity to go back and say, excuse me, Miss Poundstone, we had $7,000 in refunds or $700 in refunds. I need to get back what I gave you. That artist is gone. We've signed off on the settlement sheet. Whatever chargebacks came, we have to eat wholeheartedly. And one step further from there, speaking to the harm to the venue and by extension, the community that we serve, these chargebacks begin to affect your processing rate. Yep. So as you're bludgeoned with chargeback after chargeback, $20,000 right here, your processing rate for processing credit card sales starts to steadily increase by small points. We have to pass that on to the consumer eventually. We can't afford to continue to digest an increased processing fee. So while I don't know if specifically, other than what Kevin mentioned, they love to use Ticketmaster. We hear that all the time. I don't think it's impacting our ability to book an act right now, but I do know that there's money leaving our community, leaving our state with artists that we end up just eating because of those chargebacks.
I think it'd be helpful when we start talking about this again in January, if you could bring us some data on, you know, the costs that are affecting your venues, your businesses. The charge, you know, the amount of chargebacks that you had to pay out over the last year, that type of thing would be helpful for the committee to really understand. You know, I think it's easy for us to understand the effects on your customers. But we also, I think, want to know what the effect of of this is on Vermont businesses. I'm sorry.
Very good. Yes, actually, and I'll be able to provide data that would, our fiscal year ends this July. So if we're talking January, I'll have audited data that I can actually present to you.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. And you know, I don't know, just make sure that you're not providing us, and it might be better if trying to figure out how, you know, if it's an aggregate, so we're not, I don't think we need to understand. Just want to make sure that we're not getting proprietary information from
Absolutely.
you, from any of the businesses, and I want to make sure that there's no appearance of collusion between any of the businesses as well. So just keep that in mind.
Thank you. Yeah, and I'll ensure my controller absolutely would not let me provide any proprietary information. But if do, and yeah, we'll, although we're kind of like a little collective of the different one of us addressing this, we don't need to do this on something combined.
Okay, very good. Well, thank you for joining us this morning. It's given us, I think, a real reason to continue on this discussion and seeing what we can do in January.
Well, I really appreciate your work. It's going to help a lot of people.
Well, thank Representative Harrison for bringing it to our attention.
Sure. Thank you very much.
The, back at 10:45, so we got a few minutes, take a short break. We'll be hearing from Representative Casey on the American Irish. Then we'll be going through final look at, well, depending on what we decide there. I'd like to get 122 voted out this morning so that get it into the clerk's office so they can send it out, because it's got to go to Ways and Means into appropriations to get it on the trail and get it out of here.